Today is February 12th. We've been waiting all winter to say this. Pitchers and catchers report this week. Welcome to the beginning of spring training, friends. We made it. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins, guys. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh, and I'm joined as always by my brother Jake. What's up, Jake?
How's it going, man?
Going well. Going well.
Yeah? Yeah?
Spring training is upon us.
Yeah, and it's a bag of mixed feelings, right?
Even with the elephant in the room, I am choosing to be excited about pitchers and catchers reporting.
You can't not be excited about it.
Even with the elephant in the room. We know. We're not false. You know, this isn't we get it.
Right. But man, you just start seeing them videos pop up on social media, right? Right?
Well, you want to,
sizzle of the ball, the crack of the bat.
And we've seen the workouts. We've seen Marco Gonzalez throwing at this place, and you know what I mean. Oh, he looks healthy, right? Let's put a uniform on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's. I guess they don't really. I mean, let's get them all wearing, the same thing, I guess.
Sure.
We're not looking
practice uniforms.
Yeah, we're not looking like robots with all these things stuck to us everywhere, and we're out there throwing, looking like, whatever. But you actually just look like you're at the ball field. You get real video.
Mm-hmm.
Throw into a catcher, not up against the wall, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So... yeah, man, I am excited as I clip a hangnail that I was already playing with literally 30 seconds into the show. Because I'm not going to have that, this whole thing, and me being distracted by a little hangnail. This is the real things, man.
Yeah, just cut it off and keep pitching, right?
That's right. Also, had a steak for dinner tonight. So I'm feeling...
I was wondering if you were going to bring it up.
I'm feeling great. I don't need to bring up the whole thing, but maybe at the end for the real ones again, I'll give a slight update to my, life. However, I think everybody can relate to the fact that I had a steak tonight, so I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
Feeling good.
Absolutely.
No matter what's going on. Super Bowl's tomorrow. We said we weren't going to talk about it, so that was the extent of our conversation. We are recording this on Saturday. So if you're wondering that if some wild thing happened and one team wins 87-0 and we're not talking about it, that's why.
I would like that to happen, actually.
No, I don't.
Because
man.
I was here's the reason why. It was a trivia on Wednesday night, and one of the questions was, what was the most lopsided Super Bowl in history, basically? Who scored the most points? And it was Joe Montana and the 49ers against the Broncos. So if we can get that out of the record books, I'm cool. I'm cool.
I got you. I was wondering how you were going to tie, what are you? Okay. I just want to know the answer to that. No. All right. I got you. All right. So what do we got? What do we got here today? We've got a couple roster moves, not very many. Unfortunately, we just talked about the elephant in the room. We have, I guess, really just talking about who is reporting to spring training this week. And I don't mean Rowdy Tellez says he's going to be there on Tuesday. Because I did hear that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're going to talk about pitchers. We're going to talk about catchers. And we're going to talk about that elephant in the room. And we are also, this is the disclaimer at the beginning of the episode, Jake. We are choosing today to be excited about pitchers and catchers reporting.
Yeah.
So near the end, we're going to have a conversation about pitching. And we're going to answer the question. Sounds like you're getting a phone call right now.
Text.
Okay. That's a long vibration for a text message. Do we need to talk about that? Are you a psychopath? Anyway, somebody's going to say, really? We're going to talk about that, about the fact that, whether this is enough or not. But for the most part, we're going to attempt, right, to treat this as this is who's on paper right now. And we're choosing to find the positive things today. That does not mean that this is our only thought. This is just that disclaimer, right? I don't want anybody saying like, oh, they're drinking the Kool-Aid. They think this is the team that's going to compete. Because I don't. I don't think this is enough. However, this is a good day.
Yeah.
This is a good day. And we want to be excited today. And we want to choose to be excited about baseball happening. But I do want that disclaimer out there, right? These aren't our only thoughts. And who knows? This conversation could go south pretty quickly. And we may end up blowing this whole positivity thing out. We'll see. Because we'll see. We have conversations to have. Let's start out with one that is bittersweet. Caden Smith-Njigba was claimed. However, he was claimed by the Seattle Mariners. Was it you that even said that? Did you say, hopefully that... No, that wasn't you. I don't remember where I heard that. I was listening to a different podcast.
It didn't.
Yeah, it didn't click.
Didn't even click.
There was a podcast I was listening to. I'm trying to remember who it was. I don't remember. If you're listening to this and it was you, just throw it in the comments on YouTube or something so everybody else can look down and be like, oh, there's the... But somebody said, wouldn't it be cool if he got claimed by Seattle? So that's what happened. His brother Jackson plays for the Seahawks. That's why that's there. That's a pretty cool thing. Their seasons really don't... I don't know. It's still cool.
Yeah.
It's still cool. They're both in Seattle.
Yeah, for sure.
We had our comments about CSN last week. If you did not listen to last week, go check out the CSN comments, the Smith-Njigba comments. We both had some takes on him and what we think of his career. So go listen to that. All right, let's. We got one more note here that I feel like is important, and it's probably going to come up a little bit. I think it's going to play. I think it's going to play a factor in maybe the Pirates' aggressiveness to add to this roster, right? So let's start off with players can be added to the 60-day injured list once pitchers and catchers report. That is the rule, right? Four 40-man spots will open up on Tuesday. I assume. Yeah. I don't think there's any shocks, right?
Right.
Like I'm pretty sure Brubaker, Burrows, Endy, and Johan Oviedo will all be added. I know without a shadow of a doubt, Endy and Oviedo will be added to the 60-day injured list. You don't think there's any shot that Burrows or Brubaker are left off of that, right?
I don't think so. I don't see how they could.
60 days, I mean, they would have to return before like June in order to have that affected.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 60 days just means they're going to guaranteed miss March and April.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, April and May. Unless that even counts spring training days.
Yeah, it would be spring. It would be from
so that's
the time
March
they put
and
them on
so
there,
that's
yeah.
May. They'd have to be back in. Okay, so yeah, they're guaranteed on that list. 4 guys on.
I would
list.
imagine that's when if that's when the roster spot clears up, you'd think that it would the clock would start then as well.
That's true because you can put somebody. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's just say it doesn't matter because neither one of them are coming back before June.
Right.
Or in June, for that matter.
Right.
So, all right. Four roster spots open up. That's kind of a big deal if this is maybe the reason why And I don't know if you agree with it or disagree with it. I mean, not to be overly critical of one player, but like Alika Williams is still on this 40-man roster.
Yeah.
I think you could have signed somebody if you were waiting to sign somebody and missed out on him because you didn't want to DFA Alika Williams. Then I've got questions.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Mean, he's a good guy to have like in your system for sure, just in case somebody goes down and it's like I don't want to call it a desperation move, but almost a desperation move. Like, shoot, who's going to play shortstop or who's going to play second? Well, he's going to be able to play either one of those two positions. He's just not going to be able to hit.
Well, really, it's shortstop. It's shortstop for me. I feel like the reason he's still there is if something again happens with O'Neal Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
Do you trust Bay? Do you trust Gonzalez? Do you trust Triolo? Probably Triolo the most out of that group at shortstop, right? But we haven't really seen it.
Right.
Or Peguero, right? So like you can look at that list and you can say, geez, we're trying to figure out which one of those guys we can trust at second base, let alone short. You know what I mean? At least Alika Williams, you can say, well, yeah, he probably won't hit, but he will field. We don't want to. We're still wondering if those four guys are even going to make it at the plate. And then you have more questions at short. To be fair, maybe the same amount of questions that you have for O'Neal Cruz defensively.
Yeah.
But to think about that, because I feel like, just while we're on the Alika piece of it, I mean, if you look down at second base, shortstop kind of thing, I mean, you do have Cheng on the 40-man, but are you ready to go there if you have an injury? Are you ready? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because you're talking about, a young player, really, he's on the 40-man to protect him from the Rule 5, but you'd hope for a couple 3 years as he gets through his options.
Right.
Outside of him, I just don't know what you're going to do. I mean, there's a couple guys that are probably destined for AA, AAA that are older. Those are good guys to bring up because if they're only up for 15 days and you have to DFA them to get them back off the 40-man, that's a doable thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, you're looking for a trade. So not to get too far into position players here, but we're talking 40-man roster at this moment. And I'd be surprised, really, but I wouldn't be. You're going to open up 4 spots on Tuesday. At this point, I don't know why you'd sign somebody today.
Right.
Now,
I agree with that.
You also have 20 days to make it official, which means you could have signed anybody at any point and said, let's do your physical Monday before spring training, right? Because on Tuesday, you're going to open up a 40-man spot. So I'm not buying that. I don't think there's enough water for me tonight, Jake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Just not enough water.
Camel.
Yeah. So anyway, if you were hoping for a free agent signing, there's a better chance after Tuesday. I don't know what that chance is. It might have went from 2 to 3%, but there is a better chance of a free agent being signed. Like I said, I don't know. It might go from 15% to 45%. It might be that big of a jump. I just don't know. So,
yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure. There's obviously still names out there.
yeah.
There's a lot of names out there.
Yeah. And maybe we'll get into some of those. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about spring training. I know we already started this conversation and we will continue it now. Trying to find my timer here. Okay. So excitement level, we've kind of covered that a little bit. This has been a long winter. There's been so much to say because there's been nothing to talk about, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for a lot of teams, not just the Pirates. And let's not talk about dollars spent, but you could talk about moves made.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, even when you talk about Milwaukee, I mean, unfortunately for them, for those guys, one of the moves that they had to just talk about was losing Corbin Burns. That's got to be a tough conversation. Now there's rumors about Williams going to New York. That's got to be a tough conversation. However, in the midst of this, you were able to spend a large chunk of money on, well, let's talk about the beginning of it. You losing your coach, which seemed to be a bigger deal probably in Milwaukee than it is anywhere else, because it doesn't move. It doesn't change anything for me. But like Milwaukee loved that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now they pretty much hate him. But anyway,
complete 180.
Yeah, I mean, and then Chicago, like what they did with David, whatever. We had a conversation about that a long time ago, probably. So, whatever. But they didn't do anything,
right?
Until Rhys Hoskins. So, did they spend more money? Maybe. I don't really know. They may have in the end because of Rhys Hoskins' deal was so big.
Yeah,
but that doesn't. I mean, to me, the Pirates did more than they did. You know what I mean? It just depends on the quality of what they're doing, right? And so, like, when you talk about that, you can say, like, well, this team also, they paid this guy. Because they also had the Trios. I don't know if that counts. That's not free agency. But whatever, however you're doing your calculation and however you care about the offseason. There are teams who, maybe spent more than the Pirates because you're talking about dollars and whether you talk about the salaries of a guy that they traded for or whatever. Yeah. So I'm not talking about dollars, but there were teams with a lot less movement. Than what we
Ashley
even
and I were
with.
just talking about it the other day. I'm like, this has to be a boring off season for Braves fans. Because she's a Braves. I'm like, sure, you're set up, so you don't really need moves, but it's still boring. Like you're just literally waiting.
Well, they had all the reliever stuff very early. They were super aggressive, and they had their team basically ready very early.
Mm-hmm.
So
they made the Sale trade. And
the Sale trade was kind of a curveball, I think, a weird one.
Mm-hmm.
But the 3 or 4 relievers, they went in and just totally rebuilt their. They did it like it wasn't a weird offseason.
Yeah,
they needed to address a bullpen, and they did it in a hurry.
Yeah, and they do that most seasons, but it's just the fact.
But
that
most teams do that most seasons.
Like it's like not like there was nothing else going on.
Well, now you can sit there and talk about your team, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. What else were they gonna do? I mean, if you're a Braves fan and you looked at that roster after they rebuilt that bullpen,
and they're all locked up,
right? I guess you could say, wasn't there one position that they kind of had some turnover in? I don't remember. It doesn't even matter. This isn't a Braves pod.
Right.
Your point is like you said, on the contrary, there were teams who needed to do things who still haven't.
Right.
I mean, the Cubs signed a coach. Why haven't they re-signed Cody Bellinger by now is beyond me. Kind of gives me hope that they're not going to.
Right.
It'll be them. Either way. The thing is like there are teams that just weren't. I mean, and the Cardinals went out and they got veterans in their rotation. It wasn't quite. I mean, they got Sonny Gray, but it wasn't quite what you were just in. Last place.
Right.
And that's unacceptable in St. Louis. This is the things that you were hearing, and it had to be underwhelming. The Reds started off their offseason was kind of like, hey, I like what they're doing. They've got this young core, but they're in no different seat than the Pirates are in saying, we really need young players to do well. The only thing that I would say that the Reds have over top of the Pirates is they saw those young players start to do well last year.
Yeah.
Specifically McLean, I think, is probably the one you can be most excited about. Ellie De La Cruz obviously has the maybe the highest ceiling, but we saw a lot of struggle from him too. Mm-hmm. And so you're really like, that's an up in the air type player. I think he's better to be good than not.
Yeah.
But I believe the same about O'Neal Cruz. So I feel like if you're high on one, you're high on the other. If you doubt one, you're probably doubting the other too. They're very similar in that way. I think that O'Neal has easier power because I think that his swing is a lot less violent. So I think that, whatever. But the Reds have a good young squad. And if you're a guy who is all about that kind of thing, you're all about the Reds right now.
Yeah.
But you can't say that you're looking forward to the Reds really making a push with all those young players, and at the same time say, but I don't believe in the. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the
Yeah, I get it.
you have a little bit more on their side. It's a lot easier to
Yeah.
be positive about Cincinnati right now than it is Pittsburgh,
Yeah, you've just seen more of it already.
because you've seen those streaks that we just haven't seen from guys like Peguero and Gonzalez yet.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I'm just going to point those two guys out because we've seen it from Sawinski. We've seen it from Cruz. We're waiting for Davis. We're
You
waiting
can throw
for
Hayes in there too. I mean, we've seen it from Hayes. I still consider him a young guy because he's missed a lot.
True. Yeah, and so I mean, under the big contract already, you know what I mean, kind of proven defensively at least. But like when you look around at some of this, right field, we're just not sure yet. We're not sure with Davis. We're not sure with Peguero and Gonzalez. You know what I mean? And they have their questions too, and they probably have a couple of guys like those guys who haven't seen that success yet. But they also have McLean and Ellie, which is like, you know what I mean? So anyway,
Right.
a little easier to be excited about them. What they did is better than what the Pirates did, but not by a whole lot. Like they got pitchers that they will feel okay moving. If all those young pitchers that they have, like Hunter Green, and if they figure it out, sure.
Yeah.
So to reel it in a little bit here, it's been a lot of weird, and we're mostly we don't want to talk. We did talk Braves. You made that statement, but we're not going to go all throughout the league. I just wanted to stay in our division. So it's just been a very weird offseason. For the Pirates, it's going to be the offseason defined by we almost got that guy. We almost got that guy. Like, no.
Yeah.
And we've had that conversation. Cross the finish line with these guys. Go get them.
Right. Right.
So anyway, it's just easy to come on here and talk about that. And
that being said, though, like I did say in the past that we at least want to hear that they were involved.
Yeah.
And they were involved this year. And I think when we had that conversation, we even said, but is it going to be enough? Probably not. Like, we still want to see you sign them. We don't just want to see that you're involved. But the fact that they were involved more with more players this year, it does give me a little bit of hope for maybe the future looking forward, because I know that they're going to at least reach out and talk to these guys. Now their next step is going to be to finish that. People are going to actually see that Pittsburgh might be a good place to play, good place to be. Okay. So now they're not going to automatically put us on the back burner like they did this offseason, or choose another club over us just because they're like, they're going to win. They're not. That's Pittsburgh. Well, let's show them who Pittsburgh is, and let's land that contract next year.
Yeah, I think I would say, to that point, I think I would say I was hoping that hearing they're in on these guys would develop into they've signed this guy this offseason, not next offseason. But I understand your point. Like I said, and we're going to talk about this later. Hindsight sometimes can make you consider different thoughts and different things. And so I see where you're going with that. Hey, we did lay some groundwork. We were hoping that this offseason, that would mean that we would cross the finish line with somebody. And maybe there's still time to do that. But you would hope that it already happened.
Right.
But if it hasn't, then now what you're saying is this team needs to go out and, if the players on this team know at the end of the year, let's fast forward to the end of the year. If you're not going to be there and you know that you're 2 players away and you just want the front office to get those 2 players, do something throughout this season to make those players think that it's worth it.
Right.
Show them a little bit of, you know what? I like what they're doing there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Most free agents are going to like what you're doing there, quote unquote, when what you're doing there is offering them more money. Let's get real. However, it's time to look forward to spring training. And before we get into the actual players here, I will say that a a couple things making spring training special. You've already mentioned the videos of that sound. You know what I mean? The pitch, the catch, the whistle, the ball, because you hear those things because there's no noise.
Right.
And then there's also the crack of the bat that eventually starts to come, which actually, let's get real. There's going to be a lot of position players there.
Yeah.
You're going to already see guys swinging and hitting this week. You know what I mean? But those sounds, there's something about them when you're starving for, especially after tomorrow, or this week, now that the Super Bowl's gone, let's speak in the present somehow in the future. The Super Bowl's gone, the NFL's gone. We're going to be able to talk about what happened at the Super Bowl maybe for a week. Eventually that gets old too. But what makes that old is all of these guys that are down there. The beat writers, you know what I mean? The people that are down there putting up videos. And seeing the live baseball, not games, but live baseball action happening. And then eventually we get into games and we're going to get there. But man, throat is so dry. I like the atmosphere of spring training games and spring training in general. While the players are really fighting and grinding and trying to make a roster spot, a lot of them, Brian Reynolds is not. Brian Reynolds is getting his timing.
Yeah.
He's getting loosened up. He's getting stretched out. He's starting to use those muscles that are game muscles and starting to work his way into game shape, right? But those games don't count. And some people are like, yeah, it's spring training. Who cares? They don't count. But I love watching a game that is simply, this pitch is the only thing that matters. Once that pitch is over, I don't care. Guy hits a 3-run homer against you, and it's just like, man, I missed that. Who cares? Let's go get the next pitch. Now, in the regular season, it's a whole different thing. Okay, that happened. It sucked. On to the next pitch. But it's a different feeling. You're now behind. It's time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter if you lose by 6. It just doesn't matter. What matters is, did you get a little more of your timing down today? Did you stretch some muscles? You know what I'm saying? Like, it literally doesn't matter. And there's something about the calmness of that for me, where I get to see the game I love without the stress. And it's just this. It's this breath of fresh air for me, right? And that, I don't know if that means anything to anyone else that's listening to this, but I hope that there's someone out there that says, man, I feel that too. Because I
definitely get it. You're working on things for sure, and things matter. It's not what you're saying. It's the fact that in the grand scheme of things, what just happened doesn't matter because this doesn't go on our record.
The outcome of the game doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter at all.
If I'm down 6, I'm gonna act like it's a 0-0 game.
Absolutely. It's what work did we get in? What did we accomplish today? Who, despite the score, who cares?
Yeah. Hey, we lost by 5 today, but I saw 3 really good at bats from a Peguero or a Gonzalez. Hey, I'm seeing a better plate approach. It doesn't look like G1 Bay's trying to hit it 450 feet.
Yeah.
He didn't swing at everything that was pitched to him.
Hey, there was a runner in scoring position, and Jack Sawinski didn't wait for his perfect pitch. He did a little bit of damage and hit a single and got the RBI.
Yeah, maybe just little things that are wins, but also for me, it's just, you know what it's like for me? A spring training game reminds me a little bit of a Sunday afternoon game when you're watching 2 teams that you just don't care about. You don't like them, you don't hate them.
Yeah.
But you just get to watch, or like, it's different from like a college game because it's not the same game, right? You're not seeing a bunch of dumb mistakes and not wooden bats and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like a Sunday afternoon game, which I am guilty of saying, I don't care who wins a Sunday afternoon game. There's something about the atmosphere of a Sunday afternoon that just makes me say, I can relax and watch baseball no matter what's happening. You know what I mean? I think there's some
Yeah.
baseball people who feel the same way, who are baseball fans first, you know what I mean? Or
Right.
most. And maybe spring training's like that. Like if you're just in the middle of watching two American League teams play a game on a Sunday afternoon that you could care less about, right? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And you're just like, I don't really know who's winning. I'm kind of doing a couple things, but the game is on.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, if there's a day game on, well, I work from home. I work from this seat. If there's a day game on, not all the time, but oftentimes it's sitting up in a window. Sometimes the volume, if I'm really working on something, there's no volume, but that game's on. Sometimes the game's on and I got the game in my ear, but I'm plugged in, really diving deep into something that I'm working on. And so I'm not watching it, but I get to hear that soundtrack of a baseball game. And MLB TV, sometimes you can even play it without broadcast and you just hear all the sounds. Oh my gosh, dude.
Really?
Talk about getting into a zone.
That's interesting.
I don't remember the last time I did it, but I've done it before. So I don't know if they still do it, but like you can just turn off the broadcast but still hear all the stadium and stuff like that.
That's cool.
It's pretty awesome.
It's like playing the show because I usually turn the broadcasters off on that because they're annoying.
Oh, so bad. So bad. All right, so let's move into the players here. We're about halfway through this thing, so it's time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for enjoying baseball zen, I guess you could say, with us. I hope that a lot of you guys are baseball fans. Let's talk about the Pirates specifically, and let's start with catchers just so we can avoid this pitching talk as long as we can. Not that the catcher one is all that greater right now.
Right.
40-man roster, guys. Henry Davis, Ali Sanchez, who has no options, and Jason DeLay, who has, I think, 2 options. Those are the 3 40-man roster catchers that are going in spring training this week. The 2 non-roster invites are Carter Binns, Abraham Gutierrez. Let me just ask right out of the gate, do you see either of those 2 non-roster invites making this roster?
No.
Any chance at all?
I don't.
All right. Not that we can't talk about him, but I'm kind of there too. The question, Henry Davis is on this roster. Henry Davis is your
100%.
catcher. I think they've as much as said that. Now, obviously, if he's the worst catcher you've ever seen and he's not hitting, maybe he does go to AAA.
Yeah.
That's a bad scenario for the Pirates, running Ali Sanchez and Jason DeLay out there. But whatever. Okay, so let's jump in right away and get this out of the way. They were in on Gary Sanchez. Do we care about this? Because Henry Davis, if he's your guy, but what if he really is bad? Would a guy like Gary Sanchez have been a security blanket to say, we're bringing you in to be a backup? And I think you would have DFA'd Ali Sanchez in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing you in to be a backup. And that's it. Now, if Henry Davis doesn't, you have the ability to say, all right, let's put him out there. Let's let him. That's at least going to be better than Ali Sanchez.
Yeah, I think that's probably what caused him not to sign with us. I mean, I think he's going to have more potential playing time in Milwaukee because I think they'll use him more as like a DH.
Yeah.
You know, he'll catch some, he'll DH some. Like he'll get more at bats there, and ultimately, a guy like Sanchez, he's going to want more at bats. And if you got 2 teams interested, one saying you're primarily a backup, one team's gonna be like, you're primarily a backup catcher, but you're also going to get at bats at DH more often.
Yeah.
He's going to take the more bats.
We had that conversation a little bit on Twitter. I kind of was like, dude, William Contreras is the guy there. He doesn't have any more playing time there than he does here. But James Littleton on Twitter also brought that to my attention. Yeah, but they have a better DH situation that he can fall into, where we don't really have at bats at DH for him. And so I thought that was a good point. He also brought that point up to me. I would have disagreed with before 3 days ago. I would have said, no, he's got no playing time, until you would have had to talk sense into me. But somebody already did this week. So, yeah, I agree. There is more playing time. I don't know if the money even matters. It's $7 million. That's a lot for a backup catcher, right? I don't care. Once again,
he would have been good to have.
He would have been good to have.
And I agree with that. Do I really care that we missed out on him? Not really. Like,
yeah.
I would have been like, cool if we signed him. We didn't sign him. I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm there too. I think that there was a lot of people questioning the fit, and that's fair. You know what I mean? Especially considering, and one of the things that you hear a lot about is how much value there is that the Pirates have put, on defense at the catcher position. And essentially bringing in Gary Sanchez would have been like saying, this is the veteran version of what Henry Davis might end up being, right? He can't block a ball, and that's been a big thing.
He's gotten a lot better defensively lately.
Well, but he's only been better at pitch framing. Right? Oh, really? That's his improvement.
I mean, he's had to have gotten better at blocking, because he used to be awful.
He's still awful, according to the stats, right? StatCast is there. It exists. It is a indicator. It's not everything. However, he throws guys out at a good rate, and his pop time is at least in the better half of the league. Some years it's been much higher, into the 90th percentile. Last year was 86th percentile. It's like a 1.9. That line is 2. League average in the MLB is 2 seconds. If you're above it, it's not so great. If you're below it, you're fine. He's at a 1.9. He's fine. He's got for his career, he's got good pop times. He cannot block. He has never been able to block. He still can't block. He used to not be able to pitch frame either. And now, according to the last 2 years, his pitch framing has improved. It's now a red line on StatCast instead of a blue one. You know what I mean? Above league average, it's red. Below, it's blue. His blocks are still below. And I think that's Henry Davis. Like, he's going to have to figure out the pitch framing thing. One thing that is not considered on those is how you call a game. He was Blake Snell's catcher last year. There's points for that. You know, you caught a Cy Young winner. Maybe you call a better game. Maybe that's something that you could pass on. I don't know. I didn't see him as like a veteran. This guy's going to help Henry Davis. He wasn't that kind of a guy. He probably exists. He has the same strengths and weaknesses that Henry Davis might have. So maybe it's, how do you exist as a major leaguer? What is Gary Sanchez going to tell you? Well, people are going to have high hopes for you. You're eventually going to be a backup. That's not what I want.
Right. That's fair. And I thought about that a little bit too. And that's why I just don't really care that we missed out. But I also think it's fair to say we missed out.
Yeah, it's funny. And this is what I was alluding to earlier. This is a thought that I had this week, because oftentimes we never think of anyone. If you would have asked me, hey, what about Gary Sanchez? I would have said, I don't know. I don't see that. And then you hear that they're interested. The thing that goes on in your brain is they're interested. There must be a reason. I'm a benefit of the doubt guy. So the first thing I'm going to do is give them benefit of the doubt in a thought process. And I'm going to do some kind of exercise in my head to say, what could they see? And I would look at the player and I would say, okay, here's what they see. And so it's this exercise where I didn't think it was a fit. I tried to convince myself it was a fit. And why I do that is, if I can't, then I'm going to go all in on this show and say, this is not a fit, right? But if I can, I'm going to say, all right, I see what they see. Which is, I believe, what I did. And then in hindsight, that's hindsight in they're interested. Now they didn't get him. Now I say, I think we're okay, because I also didn't see the fit. I could find it, but I had to look for it.
Yeah.
So is it a big loss? No, I don't think it is. However, I think I would have been okay. Even if he never played an inning at first base and he only played a handful of DH opportunities, I think having him would have been better than having Ali Sanchez. Let's just go there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're not going to block anything. So, and maybe we'll have a little bit better luck doing that. To be honest with you, I've said this several times this offseason. This team needs to score runs. And if we can't score runs, I don't care how much we prevent them. Because I'm telling you, this pitching staff, as we move in, well, let's maybe not jump all the way in there quite yet, but this pitching staff's going to give up runs that you can't prevent.
Right.
With walks and homers. So,
yeah.
All right. So, you got any thoughts on these catchers, or is it just what it is?
It is what it is. The only issue you come up with, Ali Sanchez doesn't have any options. But I think Jason DeLay is going to give you the better backup option. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. I definitely don't see with those three guys. I don't see how you could carry three catchers. It's just it can't happen.
I agree with that. And I think that plays maybe next week we start talking about how the defensive and the offensive players fit into this team and what you might see of, as we go through spring training of who's going to make the team. I am with you. I don't see three catchers with this group. I really hope we don't. I don't think that we have the versatility on our bench to do that. Unless G1 Bay blows up and becomes great. Because then he could supply a multi, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Infield and outfield to where you can say, well, he could be two players on the, you know what I mean? Or unless you do something where you run 12 catchers or 12 pitchers, but we're going to get into that. Yeah, for me, it's just, I really hope Henry Davis is better.
Yeah. I mean, he's had all offseason to just focus on catching again.
He's a hard worker.
He's a hard worker. Hopefully working with the right coach.
Jason Kendall.
Yeah.
Right? We heard that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a good guy to listen to.
Hopefully, you know what I mean? Only defensively, because both of them get hit by pitches. We want to avoid that. Okay, so I think we're both there. I mean, Henry Davis is getting the keys. It's got to be him. I really wish we had more depth there. And, we just don't.
Well, yeah, we don't, but we do. It's just hurt. It's his injury. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, you're not prepared. Just
throws that wrench right in.
Yeah, if DeLay's hitting in spring and you really want him on this team, that's going to be the thing. If they choose to put Sanchez on the active roster and send DeLay down because of options, when DeLay is clearly the guy that gives you a better chance to win games, that's going to be a hard decision because you need that depth. It's a smart move. But you want to win games too.
Yeah, I think your number one priority has to be to win games. I think I don't think it shouldn't be a hard decision. If Jason DeLay is the clear-cut backup role, if he's the guy that should be getting it, you give it to him. You DFA Ali Sanchez. If he gets claimed, he gets claimed. Whatever.
A week into the season, somebody gets hurt, and
I'm sorry. You either sign somebody off the street or you bring up a Carter Benz or somebody like. And I know now that's a 40-man move. I know it's a 40-man move, but I don't know. I just
but you lost Ali Sanchez. You've got a 40-man spot. Well, if you lost him, if you didn't, then he's the guy. He stays on the 40-man. He gets assigned, and you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Because I wonder if that Jason DeLay has to be a 50% better chance of winning in order for that to matter. If he's like a 10% better chance than because Benz is going to be 75% less. That was a weird math exercise in my head, and maybe some of you followed it, maybe you didn't. I want to move on to pitching because I think that's the bulk of our conversation here. That's the thing. That's the elephant in the room. That's the thing where is this enough? How is this okay? Who is in this rotation? And we can list a bunch of guys who have a chance, right? Keller's in, Perez and Gonzalez are in, and I only say that because you brought them here.
Right.
And even though I think there could have been a scenario where Gonzalez would have had to play for a spot, I don't think you have an option now. I think he's in.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, you have Contreras, you have Falter, you have Ortiz, you have Priester. Don't let me forget a guy. Is that the list?
That's pretty much the list because the other guys that are on are going to be hitting the IL.
Ortiz, Falter, Roansy Contreras, and Quinn Priester. Yeah. Jackson Wolf is on the 40-man. That's not going to happen. Braxton Ashcraft is on the 40-man. I don't see that happening. What, he threw 50 innings last year? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
a non-roster guy, Honeywell, probably not. Willie Peralta, probably not. Could you see them starting off the year with a Willie Peralta because 4 40-man spots are going to open up? Yeah. At this point, if young guys stink, right? Let's think about this. If young guys aren't doing it, you send them to AAA to get right. You add a Willie Peralta and let him get blasted. You don't want Quinn Priester getting blasted again. He got blasted, and I'm fine with that. He learned some things.
Sure.
But the next time he's there, I'd like him to figure those things out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I think, there is a scenario where I see them throwing a guy like Willie Peralta or Brent Honeywell to the Wolves. Just because if they have to be there for 4 starts, 3 starts, 4 starts, right? However long that is, it's a few weeks, right?
Yeah.
And then DFA him immediately and he gets picked up and you say, well, that was fun. Then yes, that's who you do that with. Right?
Right.
It's that short term, we're probably going to just lose this guy immediately. Like, let's say that happens in July. And Brubaker's almost back, but he's not back and someone goes down. Heck yeah. You call up a guy like that and then you DFA him as soon as Brubaker comes back and you say, that was fine. I know we probably didn't give ourselves the best chance to win those 3 games. But that was better than maybe another option. Because if you just get those, if he only has to give you 3, there's a chance he gives you 3 good ones and then he's gone.
Yeah.
But that's not starting off the season. That's maybe a bad example, but either way. You go into this thing with not a large amount of players. You've got to still get one more guy. Because what we just went through a list of, let's say 4 guys. Contreras, Falter, Priester, and doing it again.
You said Contreras, Ortiz, Falter, Priester?
Ortiz, that's the one I didn't name right there. Okay, so you've got 4 guys right there. 2 of them don't have any options. And that's Falter and Contreras. Good chance one of them, if they don't make it, will just go straight to the bullpen. Right? If both of them don't make it, there's decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't think you have room for both of them to go to the bullpen. Not after adding Contreras.
Right.
So,
I mean, and let's not forget too that a bullpen is a strength right now, big time strength. There's no room for 2.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Failed starters.
Right. So now,
you're just going to get one of them as the long relief, and that's it.
Right now, those 4 guys could very well take up 2 spots because there's 2 spots available. I just don't feel confident in that right now. Now, as spring goes, maybe. Is there a piece of you that just wants to see this thing play out? Or are you, no, it's unacceptable.
Sure, there's a piece, but for the most part, like I'd just rather bring another guy in. The problem is the other guy. Who's that going to be at this point?
Well, let's say it's a Michael Lorenzen.
I'd take it.
Okay.
100%. Bring him in.
He doesn't move the needle much as far as like, oh yeah, hey, now we're looking at, this is maybe a wild card team, or maybe with this division, they've got a chance. He doesn't do that. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure Jordan Montgomery does that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they've got a lot to prove. Can they? I think they can with Michael Lorenzen. I think they can with two of these guys working out and going in the rotation. I think they can.
Yeah.
But
if they work
that's
out.
a seal. That's everyone clicking.
Yeah.
No injuries, right? That's what that
Right.
is. So can it happen? Yes. I'm not going to put money on it. Like, I don't feel that good about it. You know what I
Right.
mean? I think that this team has the talent. Let's say it that way. The talent is there right now. It hasn't been in the years past.
Right.
It is there now, but we haven't seen production yet. We haven't seen proven yet. There have been a lot of players with enough talent to be good who've never been good.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not a question of talent right now. When you're running out there with Van Meter on your 20, I doubt talent level. You know what I mean? And I hate throwing significant or like specific guys out. But like, you just knew that he was never going to be a starter. Not that he couldn't have been a major leaguer at some point on certain teams. He was good enough for that. Unfortunately, that was our team, the team we root for, right? And you just knew that wasn't. But the talent there, we have guys who have the talent to be starters.
Yeah.
In this league. More than 9 players.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be people with enough talent to start who won't be starting.
Yeah.
And but it's not just about talent, Jake. We know.
Right,
this.
right. You
We
got to
know
go out
this.
and you got to play the game.
You got to produce. You got to actually do it. You got to make it happen. You got to reach that
expectation.
Yeah, you got to reach your ability. You know what I mean? You got to get there. A lot of underperformers have come and gone in this league. Very few overperformers have. You don't do that for long.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, that's something. So when we look at this pitching staff, if we were going to make a positive spin on it, your positive spin could be Marco Gonzalez is healthy. That's as far as
looking
I go.
at? Are you saying looking at it right now? My positive spin on it is Roanzi got to hit the reset button.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Let positive spin on these individuals. Like, we're talking about this staff right now. So you're calling out Roanzi works.
He gets to hit the reset button. He gets to try again. Okay, he turned the game off. He's powering it back up.
I think for Roanzi, because of what we saw, I think I have to see him. I've thought that over and over and over again. Now, if he's real bad in spring, I don't have to.
Right.
But he has to know that this spring is critical. He's not a guy going out there just trying to get back in game shape. He's not a guy. He better be ready to be in game shape. He's got to dominate.
Yeah, I haven't scoured, obviously. I haven't scoured for any video of him doing any workouts or anything. No idea if he's posted anything. But, hopefully he's put in the work and he comes ready to go.
To me, though, if I'm sitting here and we don't sign another guy, he makes my rotation for opening day, no matter what. Because I want to throw him to the wolves. He's got no options. I just don't want to do this dance if it's not going to work. And I think there are times when you get a guy and you say, I'm not putting you in the bullpen to try to make something happen. You go out there and you prove it, or I will accept you working out for another team.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I will, if I have another guy needing that spot and wanting that spot and able to take that spot, I'll say, all right, you had your chance. And if he works out in a year and a half with another team, I'm happy for you, man. But I can't keep doing this. And so there's part of me that just wants to see him go out there and tell me whether it's going to work or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't feel the same about Bailey Falter because he hasn't been here that long.
Yeah. And I got to see, but I'm straight up, I got to see signs in spring training.
100%.
You got to show me that you put in the work and that you got some things figured out. And if you didn't, I'm ready to move on. Short leash.
And the thing
now,
is,
I'm not saying he can't go out there and give up some runs. It's like we said, it's spring training. Yeah. You're always working on something in spring training.
He has to work he has to work on getting outs.
You're right.
But to be honest, I don't want him like working on a new pitch. I want him showing me he can get people out. I don't care who's at the plate. I don't care if that. Remember, we did that stat last year where we talked about the quality of players, how much major league experience they had, and you have that little. So you get to see, hey, this guy's doing really good, but he's pitched against guys who haven't quite played at a certain level. You know what I mean? And so like we'll go over that again this year, and it's fine because we're gonna say, hey, he is getting outs. However, he's getting outs against. I don't care at this point. Show me first that you can get people. I don't want to see. I'm working on this pitch to see if it can be effective. No, you have no options, man. You're 24, about to be. You're 24 years old. Like, and I'm not saying that's an old. I'm saying that's a young. But like, you're still trying. Like, you need to prove you can get outs. Bailey Falter, in a different sense, is maybe he's in the same boat for me, but he's 2 years older. Bailey Falter is on that teeter-totter where you're saying you might actually be, bonus that you're left-handed, because as a right-hander, we just know the cookie-cutter right-hander in this league, in the bullpen, has to be in the uppers of the 90s. It just has to be.
Yeah.
And that's not all the way. There are guys that can figure that out. They're just not as many, right?
Sure.
If you can't bring the gas, I'm not sure. You know what I mean? It's a harder road for you to make a bullpen. Right. That's just the way that it goes right now.
Mm-hmm.
But for Falter, he's left-handed. He didn't even have to throw a fastball out of the bullpen.
Right.
He could be all breaking stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like some of these guys just go out there and throw slider, slurve, curve, changeup. And it's like, oh. And then every once in a while, pump 92 on the inner half, and it surprises you, right? As a left-hander, that's much easier to do.
Yeah.
So there is still a little bit of that Bailey Falter could be that long man. But like Roanzi, I want you to make the rotation, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because of the potential of what he did being a fluke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was like this window. And then it got so bad that I don't know where the middle is or if there's a middle. I feel like there isn't. And if there is a middle, I'm not sure that that's good enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, he's just one of those guys I've had a lot of high hopes for, and if I'm just, the organization's at a spot now where it's not time for games. They're either going to work or they're not, and you need to move on.
Yeah, a couple quick ones before we wrap this up. Mitch Keller just needs to do it for a full season. Mm-hmm. It's all there. I think he's a great pitcher. I'm not doubting him. I think that he's had a couple different things. I think I think what you saw a couple years ago was not a full season of doing well. What you saw last year was he was asked to go too deep into some games that he didn't belong being too deep in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this year they should use him better. And if they use him better, he's a great pitcher.
Yeah.
So
We have the bullpen to do that this year.
Yeah, and I'm convinced. Martin Perez, he just has to. I mean, last year he had like 5-6 starts get really far out, 6-8 run starts. Outside of those, he's a pretty good pitcher. And if he goes from last year to the year before, he's a sub-3. He was that good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need a sub-3, but if this guy could go out there and give us sub-4, I'm really happy.
Yeah.
And really, if we don't get a number 2, and I'm not sure Lorenzen is the number 2, right? I'm thinking I'm banking on Perez being that guy.
Yeah.
That's the elephant in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to end up with like, if it's Lorenzen, you end up with like pretty good pitchers. But no, there's only one guy at the top of that, right? That's not a rotation you want to go into the playoffs with, but it could be a rotation that could be a better team.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, and then who knows what you go to the playoffs with, because that could be Jared Jones and Paul Skeens. I mean, I'm reaching here, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway, the reach was them getting to the playoffs. So
Right.
then after them, Luis Ortiz, that's simple. He just needs to be good. Who are you? You know what I mean? Like the fastball fell away. There's not a lot of movement with it. What can you do? Right.
Right.
But for him, what do we got here? 25. Still has 2 options. So if it's not working, you still have the ability to keep him around. It's not a give up on this guy by any means.
Right.
And unfortunately for Rod, it's really the options that makes it unfortunate. And the last guy is Quinn Priester, which has the world in front of him. He's gotten a cup of coffee, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, any of those guys, I'd probably lean closer to Quinn Priester than any of the other guys, I think, is my opinion. Could come in here and say, that spot's mine. The lucky thing for these guys is there might be 2 spots.
Right.
Unlucky for fans, lucky for these pitchers. Specifically the 2 with no options. Because I think if you went into this and said, well, Quinn Priester or let's say Luis Ortiz for this exercise, they were the guy who won the spot. And maybe the other one is a close second, they may be the one sent down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think that in this scenario, if you need to, you go with those guys who don't need options and you say, you got a month to prove it. If Luis Ortiz / Quinn Priester, who we sent down, is pitching well, they take your spot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I could see something like that being the case. But one of those 2 will make this roster, I believe, as the long man. One of those 2 will make this roster. They won't cut ties with both of them.
Right.
There will be one of them being a long man. We didn't really talk. I mean, like I said, this is all about starting pitching. Getting a guy like Lorenzen, like I said, I don't think it moves the needle on what you think this team can accomplish. I really don't, because I think there's as much of a... I think he's figured some things out. I think he's a better pitcher.
Yeah.
Than maybe, what we might see from some of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
However, it doesn't change things for me. However, it does give you innings. And those are important right now.
Right.
If these guys flop, you can at least say, well, we've got a pitcher. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And let's say we don't have to throw Quinn Priester out there if we don't think he needs to be out there. Or Luis Ortiz. Contreras and Falter is a different story. Because we do. There is a scenario where we have to throw them out there.
Yeah.
With the no option type thing. But I could see, and we're just calling one guy out. There's actually more than that available. I don't think Syndergaard's at that level, but he's out there, and there's been a link. Who's the other one? Are you kidding me? Clevenger is the other one.
Oh yeah.
Who maybe that's closer to Lorenzen. Maybe a higher ceiling, but maybe not that. You know what I mean? I don't know. But you're kind of there with him too. There are guys there. It's unlikely it's Jordan Montgomery though.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's unlikely.
I'm going to say highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely. So we can, don't be sitting here holding your breath for that.
I'd be good with Clevenger or Lorenzen. Syndergaard, I don't know. I don't see that.
Yeah. I mean, once again, though, would you rather have that than a not prepared, than possibly ruining an Ortiz or a Priester? You know what I'm saying? There is a piece of you that says, yeah, maybe if he can give me a couple months of innings, maybe I can catch, something from him. I don't know.
Right.
It would be awkward. I'd like to see what kind of posts he puts on social media for that one, but so anyway, dude, and like I said, we were going to try to stay as positive as possible here. I don't know that we didn't just have a conversation though. I don't know that I was really thinking about it, and maybe I should have.
Yeah.
I will say for those of you who don't want to go sign 1 year deals, don't overpay. 1 year deals, they don't block players, and I don't care about the cost. Go get someone, overpay if you have to on a 1 year deal, because they just ultimately don't hurt down the line.
Right.
They don't block players. If they're bad, you let them go and you swallow that. It's not yeah, but now we got to pay him next year too. Can we hope he gets better next year? Yeah, if you got a 2 year deal, you tend to keep a hold of that guy and hope that you can get some value out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But on a 1 year deal, no, you just say the value is you not pitching for my team. And if they're struggling, and that's just kind of the piece where I don't think you're not blocking Paul Skeens by signing, a guy that you don't like. Let's say a Syndergaard. You're not blocking Paul Skeens by signing him. You're not blocking Jared Jones. You're not even blocking Quinn Priester, because if they're there, if they're available, there's going to be a guy to move. You know what I mean? If they're pitching well, I mean, there's going to be a guy to move. There's going to be an injury that happens. And ultimately, on a 1 year deal, if you have to just cut it, you can.
Yeah.
So there's still time. This is not normal. We've never had to believe there's still time at this point. You usually have your roster figured out by now.
Right.
It's not right either. But there are still guys available. It's a weird off season. Hopefully not something that's a trend that's going to happen in the future.
Seriously.
So without a discussion about this, let's blame Blake Snell and Cody Bellinger. Okay? You just want to blame them?
Sure.
All right.
I'm here for
We've
it.
agreed to blame them without a discussion about it. So we're probably, we reserve the right to be completely wrong about that. Without any thought or consideration. So pitchers and catchers report this week. Super excited.
Yeah.
Regardless, right? Because of what I just said, there's time. And let's just hope that we can make it. And let's hope that if this pitching staff is that, we hear some noise, right?
Yeah.
If you're watching on the video, I'm wearing the old, if you hear any noise, it's me and the boys bopping. So let's hope we hear some noise if this is our pitching staff.
Yeah.
But let's this week allow ourselves to get a little bit overexcited about a couple of guys that we see this week. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. He's looking good. Allow yourself to do it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be mad all the time.
No.
You don't even have to be right all the time.
Just enjoy the game of baseball and the fact that these guys are going out and they're putting in the work.
Yeah. I'm here for it, man. I'm here for those kind of vibes. Like I said, I don't do it to say I'm right.
Right.
I'm a fan. If you're a fan, then you're wrong at some point.
Yeah.
And if you're always about being right, then I think you disqualify yourself from being a fan. Because a fan has to have blind and undeserved faith or hope in something. I don't know. I think they can win today. If you said that, there's a piece of that that's wrong. You know what I mean? Because you had to convince yourself of it. You know what I mean? Like it's not a right and wrong thing. As a fan, you're supposed to have hope.
Mm-hmm.
And even though that's a hard thing to do some seasons, there's something you can hope for as a fan. And you'll find hope, even if it's just, we can win today's game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just something like that. Just allow yourself to be a fan this week. Allow yourself to just sit back and say, hey, there's a lot of things wrong in the world today, but I get to hear baseball happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't mean to get all philosophical on you.
No, you're good.
Let's wrap this thing up, Jake. You have any thoughts to close us out of here?
Man, I'm going to be looking for the videos.
Yeah.
Just at this time of year is just what I love.
I love it, man. Let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!